All right, welcome to the State of Decay 2 stream. I am Jeffrey Card, and over here we have got a special guest who is Matt Heiniger. He's a technical artist on the team, and you technical artists do a lot of different things. Like,
yeah.
What is the sweep of your job, first off, to start?
Kind of the miscellaneous category. We do a little bit of everything. Very much jack of all trades. We do lighting, rigging, tools work, performance analysis, just all the things.
Oh, we do welcoming Brant as well. He's coming in here. So everybody say hi to Brant. We are on the air. Oh, and oh my gosh! What are you gonna? Oh,
okay.
All right. Well, hey, I put us on the right camera so we can see everything that's going on.
I'll take my usual spot.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So, so over here, yeah, we've got Brant Fitzgerald over here with me. I'm Jeffrey Card. But we were talking to Matt Heiniger.
Yes.
In fact, you were talking to him, all you people. So let's put your chat on the air. So we're talking to Matt Heiniger because he is a technical artist, and there was one particular part of the game that he sort of pioneered, a new practice we hadn't done before.
Yeah.
And so IGN today released a video about our survivors, our characters in the game. And so we really wanted to get Matt in here to talk about the visual side of that. So as Matt collects his thoughts, I am going to set up the IGN video to play in the background while we discuss this.
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well.
Okay.
So, remind me there's a funny little story about what you're about to talk about next.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll try
we will remember that Brant has a story.
I am old and infirm, and I will forget.
All right. So, so Matt, you pioneered our use of a technology we had never used before.
Our use of it, yeah. So in State of Decay 1, we put a lot of focus on having a very diverse cast, and that's something we received a lot of praise for, and something we knew we wanted to double down on for State of Decay 2. Characters are hard. People identify faces very readily and know when something doesn't quite look right. And so I started investigating this technology called Photogrammetry, which more or less lets you generate a 3D model from a series of pictures. So you just take a whole bunch of photographs from different angles, feed them into the software, tune a bunch of dials, press a button, and out pops a ridiculously high poly 3D mesh. And we started using that. Well, first I experimented with like some props and trees and fire hydrants and stuff like that. And
still lives.
Yeah, it was okay, but it wasn't great. It was by no means faster than doing it the old-fashioned way. But then I tried scanning ahead, and that was ridiculously awesome. So after that, we started scanning a couple more and trying it out. So we ended up in our vertical slice. We had myself, Andy, Minters, Keeley, and Krista. And those 5 heads just turned out so great that we decided this is how we're going to do all of our heads from now on. So every single character in State of Decay 2 is a real person. They are all people that we have invited into the office and scanned, and they're real people's faces. Goodiverse
points out, yeah, the new characters look so good. People have been really impressed with it.
Extremely happy with how they turned out. It's rare that we find a process that is both faster and better. Usually you get one or the other at the expense of the other. And this generates heads at least twice as fast as doing them by hand, and it gives us actually more variation than we would normally get doing that by hand. Like with State of Decay 1, Scott would start off with a generic kind of blank mannequin head. That was our generic human head, and then kind of push and pull and manipulate it to get the face that he was looking for. It's Maya or Marcus or whoever. When you're doing that kind of thing, you kind of have to err on the side of conservative features, because like if you want to give someone a big chin, you don't want to go so big that they turn into like a DreamWorks character or something. You want to keep them fairly realistic. And so in order to prevent yourself from crossing over that line into unrealistic, you tend to go with kind of the same features. When we're scanning real people, we can scan like someone with a Jay Leno chin, and then we actually have a character in the game with a big chin. It's entirely doable.
So it's like it kind of, instead of like starting with the most, average generic features and carefully poking outwards into more, experimental areas, you start with crazy differences. Yes. And you have to maybe pull them in a little bit to match them to your skeleton.
We also, so after we did the initial test, he started trying to push these crazy features back into the range of our same generic head for the purposes of like eyes, because like all of our characters share the same teeth and the same eyeballs. It's really creepy when you turn off the...
Because they have to be animated and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like those bits like need bones and things in them.
So for the sake of animation, we had them all in the same place, and we didn't yet have the technology to like shift the eyes. But if you look at real people, their eyes are differences. They're spaced differently. And
you and I have very different shaped heads.
Yes.
Like, we would have to be rigged differently if we were 3D models.
And so when we did this first pass, and he started mushing the photogrammetry heads back onto the same rig, they started looking the same again. And so we went back and did some additional tech on the rigging end to basically push the rigs according to which head was being used.
So we've got a question about hoods and hair and things like that. Were those also scanned, or?
No. So the faces were the only things scanned. We actually scanned right about to the ear line and the top of the hairline, and then kind of put that onto a generic bald head.
And even beards were not allowed during this process, right?
No, we can do like 5 o'clock shadows, and that was about it. The hair.
This is why you won't see my ugly mug in the game.
One of the reasons
I refuse to shave this.
Yes, exactly. Same here. It's like we had the opportunity, but Brant and I were like, "What? No, this is the only way I look good."
No, I would look like a 47-year-old baby, which is disturbing in every conceivable sense. So yeah.
Yeah, we do have High Cadet in the game, actually.
Oh, yeah. So, High Cadet's in the chat here.
So, right around PAX last year, PAX Prime, we had 5 of our fans come in and get scanned. And actually, we've got a screenshot if you want to show.
Where?
Did I send you that over Slack?
The one of all the different faces?
Yeah.
I thought you didn't want me to use that. I'm
okay.
sorry. I didn't get that. I didn't get that prepped.
Oh, wow. The production value on
I
this.
can probably track it down, though. I can probably track it down. So, let's switch into chat mode. I'll look for it while you talk.
Okay. So let's see what else. It's really kind of interesting for me playing the game because since I did the scans for all of these people, I have met every single person in our game. So at no point can I sit down and have generic survivor. It's always, oh, hey, look, it's Danny and it's Mike and it's Sia. And, we've got a couple people from around the office, and so you guys will occasionally play and notice Mike the Pizza Man. But you also have the opportunity to play a generic character. There it is.
Yeah, that's...
I'm trying to find this.
Mike's... The pizza guy in our game is... I'm so happy he's in there. Because I've been buying pizza from this guy for a decade now, and it's nice to see him running around in the game.
Yeah, so this is sort of my clutched together view of this image.
So these are all of our characters right now. I think all of these are used.
So is this the number of faces we have in the game, or are there even more beyond this?
This is every face we have right now. We have scanned more than this, but these are the ones that we've gotten finished to game ready.
It takes time to process them and get them, because it's not just like you scan it and then boom, it's in the game, right?
Right. There's a lot of work that goes in after I'm done scanning.
Carol, right there, is in the office today testing the game.
And we want to be careful not to like out specific people too much, because some people might not want necessarily their name and their face identified on the internet. But is High Cadet on this list?
Yeah, he's right.
Where is he?
Right
there. There he is. Yeah, so there's High Cadet right there. So you can
minus the beard. I don't even recognize him.
Yeah, I know. So so he had this massive beard that he shaved off just for the sake of...
It was a massive beard.
Oh, yeah. It was like years of work.
Yeah.
Years of work. So we really appreciate it, because his face is one of the most interesting and awesome ones in the game. So it's great to have him in there. So I'm going to switch back into chat mode here.
Yeah, it's really interesting for me going over to someone's desk to like troubleshoot a problem, and my mom is on their monitor. It's really weird.
That's funny.
Wow, that's awesome. So there are a few people that all of us know personally, because people that we've worked with on the list, but most of the people are just a friend of a friend, like somebody that I happen to know, or you happen to know, or someone in the office invited half their Facebook friends to come in and get their face scanned.
We started looking for talent agencies to get like models in and stuff, and then we decided we want like everyday people, right? We don't want only people who are good enough, like pretty enough to be models. We want everyone. It's about everyday people. We're not doing like, the Nathan Drake with the chiseled jaw. We want normal, average people.
Yeah.
And so we put out a call to friends and family. So like, everyone in the lab, tell your friends and family that we're doing these face scans, and so bring people in. And we got a lot from that. I think one of our guys put a call into like the local Seattle indie devs and had a bunch of them come in. And yeah, it's been an interesting process.
Pulled from a lot of different places, and yeah, to try to to get the sort of the range of different faces that we needed. Real Zombie pointed out, he shouts, "I saw some Asians."
Yes. That was an interesting challenge of getting the right mix of everyone.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, it's easy, like, it would have been easy for you just calling friends and family, like, especially calling family. You get a lot of white people in here if you wanted to. But, like, we needed to get, like, a nice, sampling of the people of America, which is, which is a much, kind of a different process.
Yeah, we've actually, we scanned well over 200 people. Most of them are still kind of waiting in the wings to be processed, but the vast majority of the remaining ones are white people. And so we're probably going to be setting up another session potentially for DLC. I don't know, we'll have to see how the schedule goes and everything. But
yeah, they were asking if the list of faces is going to be expanded over time, and we certainly hope to.
Yeah, I hope so, yeah.
Sev Arctic says, I respect the F out of that decision not to have every character looking like Ryan Gosling. That being said, if Ryan Gosling is watching, come on in, we'll scan you.
No, yeah, I mean, I would be interested in playing a game where every single character looks exactly like Ryan Gosling. So that feels like that could be a whole other interesting sort of thing.
No, but all kidding aside, yeah, it was super important to us to extend sort of what we started with in State of Decay 1, which was, this is a game where everyone has the chance to survive, and it's not just your standard buff super soldier X special forces white dude, right?
Right.
So, yeah, this is everybody's chance. Right?
Steve Dulafian asks, how many hair options are there? I don't know if we need to get into exact numbers or anything, but like, just hair was just a different process, wasn't it? Or?
Yeah, this did not handle hair at all. Basically, when we scanned people, a lot of them wore a headband to pull their hair back so we could see their hairline. Hair is pretty much hand modeled in this game, and we mix and match hairs to go with faces. So although we
actually see somebody with hair.
Yeah, although we have a lot of faces, you're going to meet more characters than this as you play the game. So you're going to start seeing faces pop up more than once. We try our very hardest to not have like the same face twice in your community, but you will eventually, the longer you play, you'll start seeing repeats. And
there's no avoiding that, right?
We mix that up by having different hairstyles. You can get a very different looking person with very different looking hair.
Yeah, that's true, and also different outfits. I mean, one choice we get, one question we get a lot is about whether whether characters can have you can swap their outfits around. And actually, we ended up making the decision to not have their outfit be changeable, in part because part of what people always make jokes about yoga pants in our community, but Maya is memorable partly because of her face, her hair, her outfit, her yoga pants. Like that entire ensemble is that impression of Maya in your head. And if we want these characters to be memorable to you, like having them have all of the options at their disposal to say, look, you remember this woman, Zina Tinky with her like pale blonde or gray hair, her green shirt with the yellow sleeves, the jeans, the headband, like all of that. Really, yeah, it sort of leaves an impression in your mind. So there was a question up here that you were looking for.
Yeah, I can't find where it went. There it is. Intrepid Pioneer was asking if players can be chubby. That is something we really wanted to tackle, and we just simply did not have the time and resources to get in there.
Is it mostly an animation issue, like a rigging issue?
Yeah, that's a lot of it. You can't just take a character and inflate a little bit and have something different. People move differently, they behave differently, clothing fits differently. Getting different body weights, it's a lot harder than that. And so we would cut down the number of variations you see on a character. So rather than having like 80 different shirts that this character could have, they end up with maybe half of that per character. And it severely limits the options of the mixing and matching kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there is kind of an interesting effect, though, that comes from the influence of the faces, because a lot of the characters wear a lot of bulky clothes. So if a character has like a really sort of narrow face, and you feel like, oh, they're wearing a lot of bulky clothes. But if they have more of a fleshy face, you think that maybe some of that bulk comes from their body. And so you can still get the impression of having characters who are heavier or lighter, but it's not because we've modeled a special chubby character.
We unfortunately don't have like the Pastor Will kind of character in this game, right?
Sorry. Lou said, I came to the office to get scanned, but I shaved the wrong area and they sent me home. Yes, this was... Yeah. We already had Brazilians in the game.
We do actually scale height a little bit, though. So we do have some height variance so that not everyone is quite the same.
The one green man was just asking that. What about height? So, so there is a little bit of variance?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to change someone's height than it is to change their weight.
And that's, you can like make little subtle changes, because the characters are already smart enough to deal with things like, I'm standing on ground that's a little bit higher, or one of my foot's up, or like we've got a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So being a little taller, a little shorter, the IK stuff compensates, right?
Interesting with the shaving. We actually, when we did our face scanning session, or one of our sessions anyway, we had a guy come in like an hour after he was supposed to be here. I was sitting around in the office waiting on a Saturday for an hour for some guy to show up, and he walks in the door, gigantic like lumberjack beard. I'm like, I'm sorry, man, I can't scan this. This is not useful. And so he turned around, he left, he went to the corner store and bought a razor and a can of shaving cream and shaved in our bathroom just so that he could be in the game.
Wow, that's awesome.
Oh, that's why it looked like somebody murdered a squirrel in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering what happened that day.
So Underwhelming Gaze has a question about character stats, and so why don't we go in a little bit into sort of how the other elements that kind of go into to identify a character and who they are. And we can please keep asking questions about the visuals though, because we're going to kind of overlap here a little bit. But Underwhelming Ace asks, can your characters learn skills like medic or farming, or is it going to be the same as the first one? So you'll notice that on the screen here, this character has got 5 skills, right? They've got Marathon, which is a specialization of cardio. They've got Wits, they got Fighting, and they got Weapon Handling, which is a specialization of shooting. And so all characters have some form or another of these 4 skills. Some kind of physical skill, a mental skill, a fighting skill, a shooting skill. And then there's this 5th slot. And this 5th slot is used for whatever skills they use to benefit their community. In this case, what's her name? Allison. Allison is an expert in utilities, which means she knows electrical and plumbing systems. And so there's certain things around the base that she can make better than anybody else. And there's certain things that actually you can't make at all unless you've got a character like her. But not all characters start with a 5th skill. A lot of them have just a blank spot there. And so when a character has a blank spot, you can get a skill book and you can teach them that skill. And they'll start at the very bottom of the skill. They won't have a specialization. You'll have to sort of build them up over time. But you can sort of customize to that degree. And so they'll end up actually gaining a trait up here that says, I learned about I learned how to be an electrician on the fly, or something like that. That'll
you can
tell
level
a story.
those skills up, yes.
Yeah, you can level those skills up. Basically, anytime you do something in your community, like you use a base facility or something like that, if it's relevant to one of those skills, then all the characters in your community who have that skill will get a little bit of experience in that skill, and over time, it'll steadily build up.
So that means that characters that previously might not have, like in the first game, might have been just useless and you would have taken out to the back of the barn, can actually be really important if all your other characters already have like a community skill.
Yeah, no, they might end up actually being some of your more flexible characters. Which if you're going for flexibility, like that's you've got a particular hole in your community you want to fill. That might be a great way to fill it instead of trying to wait until you find the exact right person. So this guy, Ben, he's got craftsmanship. That's his thing. So that means that he's good at constructing things, crafting things. That can be specialized in a couple of different directions. And you can see that...
oh, there's a good question from Joa. Is it possible to get rid of a skill and use a different one?
Once a character's got a skill, they're kind of locked into it. That's sort of, and actually there's some characters who have skills in that bottom slot. Things like, in the original game, you remember sexting was one of our favorite skills. There are skills like that fill that bottom slot, and the character, they've got some advantage usually from whatever 5th skill they've got. But once they've got a 5th skill, they're kind of a specialist already. They don't have any room in their brain for anything else. Like, you know, I think if I tried to learn to be an electrician right now, I'd probably fail. I'm starting too late in my life. I've learned too many other skills. But yeah, so that's how that works. So, you know, if you're a psycho, you know, maybe you'll end up taking people out to the woodshed if you want to replace them. But hopefully, the thing is, that was one of the troubles. Somebody asked me in Discord this morning. If if you could have a character who is just a complete train wreck, who just like all of their traits are bad, everything about them is terrible, and I said, potentially, you know, once in a blue moon you might get a character who's like that, but the problem is, like, as people were testing the game around here, like if they ever got a train wreck, people just kept reporting to me, well, I just took that character out and murdered them.
You just don't want them.
You just don't want them. And like, so I mean, so we want you to invest in these characters, and so usually a character, there's a limit to how bad they could possibly get, because we want you to see the potential value in every person, because that's kind of part of what the message of this game is that, you know, each individual person is potentially valuable, especially, you know, you get into zombie apocalypse territory. There's no expendable humans out there.
Is there a limit to how many traits a character can get?
Yeah, there sort of is. And look, Jørgen's coming in. Let's
Jørgen.
welcome Jørgen.
Hey.
We'll answer that in just a second. You might want to sit on the edge of the
How about we
couch
trade?
there, or
Either works for me.
whatever works here. So
I'm gonna head back to work.
Okay.
So
okay,
I will
well,
trade.
hey, go ahead and have Matt. Thank you very much, Matt, by the way, for coming
Bye,
in.
Matt.
And, yeah, everybody, big thank you to Matt. And yeah, we owe a lot to his pioneering this technology for us, so we can get these characters in. So let's quickly introduce Jørgen. This is Jørgen Tjernø. He is a programmer, and among many things that he's done on this game, he has worked on the character generation system. And yeah, get you all situated there. So where is our... That's what we're doing. So we're watching the IGN video silently in the background to sort of talk about how characters work. And so I don't know. Maybe we should sort of like build this up. Verse Twitch says finally a face to the Discord name. So yeah, Jørgen has participated on our Discord channel quite a bit, and so yeah, people
Mostly
know
I
who he is.
lurk, I think. Yeah, I just, but I am in there, and my name is recognizable. So weird characters and everything.
So let's see. So Rio Cuxian asks, will a character's physique affect their stamina or endurance, like how long they can sprint? It depends on what you mean by physique. Like Matt said earlier, we don't have like a huge differences in characters' like visual body types. But if you're talking about their physique, like if you mean their cardio skill up here, it does make a big difference.
And I mean, so do the traits that can talk about their history and what they were doing. Maybe like if they were personal trainers or things like that, that will also affect their cardio skills and.
So is it possible to get a personal trainer with asthma?
Yeah, probably. It really kind of depends. We've got this kind of complicated system behind the scenes. Actually, why don't we just sort of build this from the ground up a little bit, like how it works. So on one side there is the characters like. Physical appearance. There's the face, their model, the voice that they use, and their name and sort of their cultural background. That's kind of one set of things that's determined about the character that is sort of makes sort of their impression in your mind of who they are visually. Gives you sort of the little mental tags to apply to them. But then you've got get back to the screen here. But then you've got under the hood how the character actually works. Is determined by their traits. So this woman in particular, she's an auto detailer, a rifle collector, and I think that said she has a high pain threshold? I think is what that said before it just went into shooting mode here. Yeah, high pain threshold. And so traits kind of come from different parts of your life. Like some of them are part of your life history. Some of them are personality traits that you have. Some of them are interests that you have. Some of them are careers that you've had, hobbies. And we kind of divided all of these up into different categories so that one character wasn't so we wouldn't get one character who says I'm a firefighter and also an engineer and also a medic and also and a school teacher.
Right.
Even though technically I'm sure there's at least one person in the world who has that entire life story.
Kind of detracts from the image of the character if there's too many conflicting messages being sent. I think it helps as kind of give you an idea of this person. Oh, it's the person who did this before. You know, like it gives you kind of something to focus on. So
yeah, like the more work the player has to do trying to figure out who the character is, the harder it is for them to sort of quickly engage with them. And this is a game where you're controlling lots of different characters. So the faster we can get you to quickly sort of grok who this person's supposed to be, the easier it is for you to like attach to them and remember them. But then once they have the traits, each of those traits, I was drunk with power by the ridiculous tools that you gave me to work with, because each of those traits can do like scads of different things to the character. Like we have this entire, Brian and I both, we had Brian here last week to talk about the base building system, and he and I both were tapping into the same universal system of buffs.
Yeah.
That stretch across the entire game.
I mean, I think part of the thing here is that it makes your job almost harder to have a lot of things you can do with it, because it puts a lot of the responsibility on you to make it so that the trait, like description and what it says, kind of is intuitively understood by the player to affect the things it does. Because it means that you have to make sure that, like, if somebody gets a janitor, trait, that since it can have so many different effects, they would kind of intuit what that would give the character, rather than having to go in and read the specific numbers and all the different stats and try to figure out, like, oh, what is plus 15 to this and minus 5 to this, and like it's a lot of numbers, right? So you have to kind of distill it down so that it's cohesive, I guess, or intuitive.
Yeah, and that's essentially some of the bugs that I've gotten over the course of development was people playing a game and saying, hey, I got a janitor, and I expected them to do this. And instead they did the opposite. What are you thinking? And I'm like, I had this entire thought process in my head, but I can't put that thought process into your head. So, right. All I have is the word janitor, its description, the reports of like what buffs it gives you, and if it doesn't make sense to you, then I've done it wrong, and I need to try again.
How many traits did you add?
There are over 1,200 starting traits in the game, and then there's others that we use. Like, we actually, because the trait system is so versatile, we've used it for a bunch of different things. Your injuries are secretly traits behind the scenes that get reported in a different way, stuff like that. So there's more traits than just like the 1,200 some, but the 1,200 some are the main ones that define your character.
It's got to be hard for you to keep in your head why your justification for every single trait when you've made 1,200 of them.
Oh yeah, no. So yeah, sometimes I'll get a complaint about a trait, and I'll look at it, and I'll be like, what was I thinking? That doesn't make any sense.
But I think back to the question that Brant was asking about the asthma, like,
yeah,
part of the tools that we created aren't just what the mechanical effects are, but also how they're composited to create a character. Yeah. And we do have blacklists for things that are like, yeah, it maybe doesn't make sense for this person. Like you said, the number of careers, for example, is one of those, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't want you to have multiple careers, because it's it's difficult to distill it out. But also
things like there's like a couch potato trait, and there's also an avid jogger trait.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, somebody says they're an avid jogger and a couch potato. I mean, yeah, again, you could write a character,
right,
if you're trying to be very clever, who somehow navigates that. But if you're just looking at it, it just looks like a mistake.
Yeah.
If you see that on a randomly generated character. So there's this entire like elaborate tagging system behind the scenes where like we can put tags on different traits that say, okay, you can only have one trait of this set, or if you have a trait from this group, you cannot have a trait from that group. Like if you have a trait that insinuates the character is fantastically wealthy, you cannot also have a trait that suggests they were fantastically poor at the same time, because it starts to just give a weird impression.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard a lot of folks asking about how many different leader types there are, and that's something we could probably go into too. Though I think we're not going to answer a lot of questions specifically about leaders, because that gets into the end game stuff, and I think folks, especially Foggy, has been holding back on that. I think we should hold back on it too. But you'll see here that this character is a leader. So community standing is an important aspect of your character. So each character, when they're brand new and they're invited into the community, they start out as a recruit. And then they could progress from a recruit to a citizen, which is at the point when they're a citizen, you get to learn more about them. And then when they become a hero, they unlock a special bonus. So this guy, he had one, I'll back it up a little bit, called Setting the Pace. So your hero bonus is actually derived from your traits. Like each of the traits has a potential to offer a hero bonus. And when your character is generated, one of the potential hero bonuses your character could have gets selected as their official one. And so this guy, he's got Setting the Pace, which gives everyone a speed bonus when they're doing things in the facilities, and I believe that one comes from him being a shop teacher. So because he's used to running a shop full of a bunch of kids all trying to do crafting work and get a lot done in a certain amount of time, because he's really used to managing that. Having him around as a hero means that he can get people working quickly, getting stuff done. And because of that, he's a great person to have around the base. So something that was going to take you 15 minutes now takes you 10 minutes.
So we've had a very persistent questioning about special relationships.
Oh,
between survivors, like romance and stuff like that. We don't. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. We don't explicitly have like people pairing off or anything like that.
Well, we don't have.
Yeah, I mean, we do. We do tell stories about people's relationships, but we don't have, I guess,
like a procedural
system.
Yeah,
we don't have a system to pursue those kind of on their own. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think that our content is more, like our missions talk more about like your family than necessarily your romantic. But there are
romances here and there. Yeah, I think there's the thing that's tough is, like, we've seen a lot of sort of romance systems in games or relationship systems in games where it tends to kind of just get watered down over time. Like, oh wow, if every single character has got a relationship with every single character, it kind of fades into this sort of like miasma of like everyone thinks things about people, but I can't remember any one particular of them. And so instead, it's
like
more of a
meter filling too, right? Where you're like, I just keep giving them these presents until they like me enough to want to go out with me, and that just like feels very weird, and, like uncomfortable, and like you don't want to get into that territory.
If you start thinking of reality working that way, you're going to be very disappointed by life and possibly disappoint some other people.
Yeah.
So instead, we basically, when there's an actual story to be told that's going to have dialogue and events and things surrounding the actual relationship, then the relationships come into play, and you'll see them reflected in the characters. You'll know who is brother and sister, who's romantically connected, but it's going to be driven by the story, not driven by some system.
I think Garlic Burp was asking about character generation at the beginning of the game.
Like there's been a few different kinds of is the question about like the one question I've seen a lot is is the first character you start the game with, are they going to be random? Like the way that, say, because in the original game there were a lot of characters who were just sort of randos off the street, but you started with Marcus and Maya and Ed. So our game, the sequel, does not have a Marcus, a Maya, and an Ed. There are definitely the randomness is definitely constrained up front. The initial characters, when you're playing your very first game and you're going to go through the tutorial and learning how to play, we constrained the characters up front so it would be more predictable and we could be more sure that we're giving you a good starting story and a good set of options up front. But once you get out into the wild, like once you're an advanced player and you're starting new games with skipping the tutorial, you are completely using procedural characters, and so you go out playing with your friends, you're going to have a character that nobody else, none of them has.
Yeah, and there was a question about choosing traits specifically, and we don't. I mean, choosing traits is, I think, like Jeffrey said, there's 1,200 of them. Like, nobody's going to give you a list of 1,200 traits and go pick which ones you want. Right? Like, that's just ridiculous. And so, it is randomly generated. But when you are, doing your subsequent communities, you get a little bit of a say of like, which random characters you want.
Yeah, I think you could. And we've seen this in a lot of other games. Games like RimWorld and Oxygen Not Included are good kind of examples of sort of the way that you start a new game. In our game, you get the characters are all randomly generated, but you get some choice about what group of randomly generated characters you want to start with. So yeah, by the way, those are both excellent games, and so if you haven't played them yet, definitely, if you're curious about how character generation works, go check out those games because they're amazing.
For Bulo, there are 3 save profiles in State of Decay 2 instead of 4.
So you can have like sort of maintain 3 different communities doing 3 different things if you want to at any given time. Let's see here.
Schlock, there's been a lot of questions about the paper doll allowing you to change clothing. Not in this game.
Yeah.
Paper doll is always something that's high on our list when we start out a project. But because of differences in characters and things like that, creating clothing that works for all characters of a certain skeleton is very difficult. And we just didn't have the time or resources to devote to making sure that every shirt worked on every male rig or every female rig.
And,
So,
and aside from that too, I mean, there like I was saying earlier, you know, there's definitely some value in not doing that because it's sort of like if you have like a favorite outfit, for instance, you always like to put on every single character. That actually kind of takes away from each character's ability to sort of, you know, stand out and kind of be themselves. This is actually one of the reasons why we also, you know, really don't want to go for, you know, like a character creator and stuff like that, is because, you know, like we want each of these characters to feel like they're a unique thing that you can never get back. If this character dies in the game, you can never get them back. And if we have a character creator system where when you lose your character, when you lose, you know, Zynatinky, you can go back and make Zynatinky again and start over again, it kind of takes a little bit of the sting out of that. And the sting is kind of an important part of the game.
Yeah. I also think that part of it too is to help people connect with their community rather than with an individual, because I think that it's, if you're doing the like, this is my character and I'm just going to make that in every community, I think it leads you towards a play style where you're just playing as that one character forever. Like you don't care about the rest of your community because they're not your favorite character, right?
Yeah.
And so like this is a game that is about surviving, you know, together. Like you have a vast selection of well, vast usually depends on how well you're playing, but you know, you have half dozen characters or whatever that you have in your community, and you should feel like there's reason for you to switch between them and not be like, oh, I'm not playing my character anymore, and so there's not, you know, I'm not getting anything out of it. So
Sassy Snake asks, how do the characters become citizens, heroes, etc.? So basically, when you're out in the world playing as a particular character, you know, you're completing missions, you're doing things for your community, like bringing home rucksacks, you're defeating zombies. A lot of this stuff, basically anything that you would imagine in another game, like in another like RPG, would earn you experience points. Those things earn you standing in your community. And so, standing, right, you see that, you know, right up there. That's where this is labeled, standing. And so, when you're not yet a hero, I think all the characters that Foggy is paging through on this are heroes. When you're not a hero, you actually see a bar right here showing your progress to the next rank. And so, when you're a recruit, you see a bar progressing towards citizen, and when you're a citizen, you see a bar progressing towards hero. So each time you do something that would earn you XP, you know, in another game, you gain standing, and that progresses you towards becoming a hero.
Yeah, and then somebody was asking about why do we have to promote a hero? And I mean, no.
You mean promote them to be a leader?
Yeah,
Or,
promote them to be a leader. And no, you don't. But you know.
There's a lot of stuff you get out of having a leader.
Yeah.
It unlocks a lot of endgame content that you're going to want to have access to. And then there's also just stuff around your base, like new options that get unlocked when you have a leader that aren't there otherwise.
and I don't think there's a downside to promoting a leader, right? Like
Not really, yeah. It kind of you know, it commits you to one set of things rather than another, so there's an opportunity cost. But that's kind of about it.
I mean, they could have an accident.
Yeah, exactly.
You could find another leader.
There was a question, somebody did ask, and I think I got distracted at one point. They asked how many traits a character can have. We try to limit it to 4 because that's what fits comfortably in the UI. And that actually really was driven by UI initially. But then also, if you have much more than 4 traits, it starts to just be hard to remember who the character is.
Yeah.
And so a lot of characters will have only 2 or 3. Just to keep things very simple, but the cap is 4, and if a character somehow magically secretly gets traits that are more than 4, you just won't see them. Like you know, for one thing, I mean, for instance, like I said, injuries are technically traits, so you are getting traits past the 4, but they're not being reported as, you know, these character traits here. They're being reported when you highlight your health. You'll see that the character's got injuries like gas inhalation or you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, in some ways, there's kind of 2 different ideas of the trait here. It's the trait as the character narrative, the way we, you know, tell you about this character, and then there's a trait as in the code that we wrote that we use to glue together certain pieces of the game. And
yeah.
you know, like
there's a whole other set of traits. It's just whenever people, whenever mission designers, which I also was one of those, like needs to sort of remember, hey, remember, this is the character that this event happened to. We slap a trait on them,
Yeah.
and then later on, if that character's still alive, we can grab them and involve them in some future part of the story.
So that trait there, kept smartphone, does that have any specific effect, or is it just kind of a lore skill? It says from Chickenman 12365.
So kept smartphone, I think did he already highlight kept smartphone? I'm trying. I need to know if I should go backwards or forwards. But the main thing that kept smartphone does is it unlocks target of sympathy. So kept smartphone, this is a person who carries their smartphone around, charges it, and looks at pictures of their family who are all dead. And so that unlocked the target of sympathy hero bonus, because everyone around them was like, oh man, you know, I've got it rough, but look at this person. They're so sad all the time. I feel pretty good about my life, and it gives them a morale bonus.
Does it affect their morale that they are looking at these photos all the time?
I'm trying to remember. It's one of 1,200. But yeah, if
you didn't study up before that video.
I didn't study up on these specific ones. I did make sure that I knew the number 1,200. That was very important.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm slowly backing this. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, so it looks like there's no mechanical effect. It is just a lore thing, and there's a fair number of those. See you later, Brant.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, so there's a fair number of traits that really are just telling the story of that character and who they are. Modding Natted asks, and this is a question we answered a little earlier, but we'll jump on it again real quick. How will the skill books work that are included in the pre-order bonuses? So you'll notice that characters have a 5th skill here. The first 4 skills are about action, about what they can do in the field. This last skill is about how they benefit their community and their base and their facilities and stuff like that. A lot of characters are missing this 5th skill. They start with nothing in that slot. And if you get a character with nothing in that slot, then you can use a skill book to give them that skill fresh. Or if you already have a character with that skill and you just want them to learn that skill better, you can also use the skill book to level up their skill.
Yeah.
So like if you already have a gardener and you have a gardening book, they can get to be a better gardener.
Yeah, I mean, the four first skills are pretty fixed, the base versions of them, and then the specialization is where the variety comes in. But then we have kind of a 5th slot for more options for variety and customization of these characters.
Okay, we should talk about specializing skills, actually, because that's a thing that they go into it in the video, and we haven't talked about it here yet. So each of these skills, like this one starts out, the top skill is always cardio, the second one is wits, the third one is fighting, and the 4th one is shooting. And so if you have a vanilla character, they start with those, and the level of that skill, they start out usually is really affected by their traits. Like if they have a lot of shooting experience, they might start with a higher shooting skill. But then when you level that up to 7 stars, like right here, you can see, fighting has the option now to choose a specialization. So this character can choose close combat or endurance, which gives them different benefits. Each of these skills has actually 4 different specializations available, but which ones a particular character has access to are it's usually limited. Very few characters actually have access to all 4. Usually, it's limited to 2 or 3, and it's dependent on your traits.
The other thing that you can notice is that there's a distinction between the kind of more common specializations, which endurance here has that
little square by it.
It had a little yellow square, which means that that's kind of like the one we give you unless we have a reason to give you something else.
Yeah, almost every character has access to endurance. It's rare for a character not to have endurance as an option, but close combat is a special one. It's like, only like, a quarter of characters will have access to close combat. Excuse me.
And that'll often be driven by the traits that they get that will give them specific specializations.
So for instance, if you have a character who is like a blade collector or something like that, you'll see that they will have, they'll have maybe a slightly higher fighting skill, but once you level it up, they will definitely have blades as a specialization, or a sword play is the name of the skill. They'll have the sword play skill as one of their options. Similarly, like if somebody you spend a lot of time in the batting cages, striking that's sort of our blunt weapon specialization. They'll have that, and then and then each of these specializations, some of them unlock, like backpacking, for instance, unlocks extra slots in your inventory and more carrying capacity. Stealth makes you harder for zombies to notice. Striking, it unlocks new combat abilities. Assault, same thing. Like it makes you better at handling full auto, and it also lets you, if zombies get too close in the middle of a fight, you can kick them off you with a special move. A lot of people have actually asked about whether focus aim came back. Oh, let me.
Are we answering that?
Let's see here. You switch. Yeah, we can answer that in a second. a lot of folks have asked about focus aim, which is sort of the time slowing ability from the original game. We didn't bring that into the second game because time slowing is very complicated in multiplayer. You don't want to just be running around and suddenly time slows down because your friend was aiming their gun.
Yeah.
So we replaced it with something. If you get the gunslinging specialization, you get the ability to hit the A button to snap to people's heads, which gives you some of the same benefits, because usually when you're slowing time, what you were doing was trying to get on their head.
Right.
So you still can have fancy aiming abilities, just not that particular one. Datitude asks, can you switch which character you're controlling at any time or place, or only at outposts or the base? And the latter.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Just, I mean, switching at any time is I mean, complicated, and it kind of reduces a little bit of the risk to your character, it feels like. You know, you can you get in a bad hairy situation, you see that there are zombies around, you maybe just switch away. You know, like, how do we handle that? Do we try to, you know, punish you for being around zombies when you switched? And then it's kind of hairy to communicate, and I think that it's a good compromise to let you do it at outposts and bases, and those are kind of safe places for you to do that.
Exactly, and because, you know, it's not just the base, right? Like we do want you to have reasons to return to the base fairly often, but, you know, if you know you're going to be spending a lot of time across the map, the best thing you can do is make an outpost there, and then you've got a place to return to that's close,
right,
anytime you want to. So you do have a lot of freedom to sort of give yourself some flexibility there. But yeah, like right in the middle of a fight with a Juggernaut, if we just let you, you know, bug out of that anytime you wanted to, that could have weird implications.
Yep. Do you want to answer the question about voice acting?
What was the question about
How
voice
do you
acting?
handle... a little bit up. This one here.
Where?
Alfred Ben says, how do you handle voice acting and character personality with an essentially random system?
That is a very good question. So, so we should actually, at some point, we should get Andy Collins in here to talk about that, because he is the one who understands that system absolutely the best. But to sort of summarize a little bit, this game has so much dialogue recording.
Yeah.
because we have you know, more than a dozen different voices recorded in the game, and each of those voices, not only because we do not have a Lily character in this game. We don't have a character who is just one voice who does all of the sort of the business, you know, talking.
Story, yep. The storyline.
Like, all of our voices do all of the talking, and so, you know, so that means that, you know, that not only does each voice need to be able to say all the normal things like, hey, there's zombies over there, or hey, we just got a report in that there's some survivors you need to rescue, or whatever. Not only do they all need to say that, but whenever something was very personality driven, like somebody wants to say, hey, I don't think we should help those people, we need to watch out for ourselves, or oh man, I feel really bad that we didn't help those people. Those lines also had to be said by every single voice.
Or even if it was things like, you know, I want to tell you about this, like, this family member that I had, or whatever. Like, you know, like, every voice needs to talk about that one thing, and it's like, yeah. But they are written to have personality. Like, the voices aren't just reciting the same lines. They are what stories you get and what they tell you about themselves, and how they talk about this. Even this, essentially the same thing as, like, there's a zombie over there. Each voice has its own personality. That's kind of imbued in the writing sense of it.
Yeah, I think that, you know, and Andy could, like, you know, we should definitely get Andy here to talk about exactly what he did. But, like, yeah, he even had, like, different writers writing the dialogue for different voices. Like, he would tell them this is what the line has to be, but then he would get completely different submissions from different people, so that each of these characters should feel like they are a different person talking about it.
Yep.
We should do an entire stream about that, though, because it was a harrowing and terrible but also amazing process.
Fubark says voices.pack must be huge, and while it's not literally called voices.pack, there's a reason the programmer, like, source control setup says programmer no audio, because getting all the audio just from our version control can take a long time. So that's it is just massive amounts of writing he did, and recording. Like, I mean, the number of voice actors and the number of hours in the recording booth is just, it's astounding.
Datitude asks, if you fill all 7 stars after specializing, is there another level of specialization?
No.
I guess we technically could have done that, but no.
Super specializations.
Yeah, when you get to the 7th star, usually we do unlock some new thing at that level whenever we can, to make it worth it. You know, you want to get there. But it's not a brand new specialization.
And when Jeffrey says new thing, he doesn't mean, you know, oh, you get another 2% to your aiming or whatever. It is like a discrete difference where when you get when you first specialize, you get kind of usually a discrete new thing you can do or noticeable improvement, like a significant change.
Immediately, yeah.
And then you kind of have the incremental.
Oh, what the heck? We got a Braun commercial going on. Thanks, IGN. Hey, everybody. Let's shave our faces so that we can get our faces scanned by Matt Heiniger. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, so as you level that specialization, you know, it incrementally gets better, and then as you hit the 7th star, you get a second, like, oh, here's a really cool thing, you know, like you get that reward for reaching that point.
Yeah.
And have you talked about skill caps?
No, we haven't. Yeah, they do talk about it in the video, but I'm not going to show the video because it's again a bronze commercial. But yeah, so the some of your traits will actually cap how high a certain skill. Like for instance, like one trait just based on me is absent-minded, which basically I think it caps your wits at about like 4 stars or something like that, and also reduces the rate at which you can earn wits. And so what that means is you might spend the exact same amount of time trying to earn up your wit skill that somebody else does, but you only get to 4 stars and then you stop, and you can't specialize, which is why I'm not quiet because I couldn't specialize in stealth.
You know, this time
but yeah, but so, and I think that one of the characters in the video, and I don't remember which character it was, but has that. They, like I think they oh yeah, they had asthma. I think Ben maybe had asthma. Hey, Matt.
List of different traits.
Oh, it's playing audio now. Oh crap. Oh crap. Sorry, I hit the. There we go. Awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have headphones on listening to what's going on our screen, so we didn't know what was happening.
Thank you, Blade of Meat Shield, and anyone else who told us about the video that was double playing there.
Okay, so I think we fixed that though, right? I think we're muted now. Everything should be fine. Okay, so we should go back and say the things I was saying before, because that was probably really difficult to hear.
You were talking about being absent-minded.
yes. Okay.
And forgetting to turn off that sound on the video you're playing.
Wow. Well, if that was not fortuitous. Okay, so yeah. So if you have, so I believe was it Ben or was it Iman? I'm trying to remember now who had the cardio limit. Oh yeah, it must have been Iman. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, yeah. So you can see.
It's a little hard to see anything on a screen here, but
yeah, each of these skills that has not been leveled up yet has got a shadow of 7 stars. Cardio's shadow stops at 4. And that means that he can get his cardio up to 4, but because he has asthma, we've capped it there, and so it stops there, and then he can't specialize. He can't get marathon or acrobatics or any of the other specializations that come out of cardio because he just, that's as far as he can go. And that's not very common. Most characters won't have that, but the hope was that now and then you'd have a character who, they've got some really valuable skill, but they also have a really important hindrance. Because you notice his asthma is not just reducing his cardio, but it's also, most people start with 100 stamina. He's got 89.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the kind of thing, right? Like, even though not every character is going to have, like, reduced max stars, they usually have there's some trade-offs to be made where they, maybe it affects, like, morale, or it affects their stamina, or their health, or something like that. So there's usually, they're not all, Mary Sue characters who are just perfect in every manner. They oftentimes have, like real people, some places where where other characters would be better suited. Like you might have a character that might have better cardio and marathon runner or whatever, and you might want to use them if you're going to haul a lot of stuff on foot back to your base. And if you have a car, maybe this asthma guy could totally go out and do that because he's, he'd look at his gunslinging and resourcefulness. He's going to find a lot of good stuff, and he's going to, be really good at firearms handling, but maybe not carrying, a backpack full of meat or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the guy you want to bring when you're taking down a plague heart. He's not necessarily the guy you want to bring when you're going on a long-term run to go collect a new car that you saw or something like that.
Cake decorator. What benefit does that give? Asks Joa.
So cake decorator, I believe that
isn't that the party? That's the party planning.
Yeah. So it unlocks the party planning hero bonus, but it also gave him the cooking skill. That's the main benefit that it has, is it gives you the cooking skill. So Chicken Man, the reason I'm ignoring your question is because I actually forgot the answer to it. Because there's a few different cases between single player and multiplayer where things might work differently. We went through a few different iterations, and I'm terrified of giving you the wrong answer. So I'm sorry that I've been ignoring your question.
Yeah.
But we will get back. We will definitely get you an answer to that at some point. I'm not going to be able to tell you right now.
Yeah, no, I think I saw some changes to that logic recently too. So I wouldn't. Whatever promise you make might be different.
Yeah, exactly.
When they get their hands on the game. So.
We've all been through the experience of like talking about a feature that we want, and then ending up seeing it work out a little differently, and so for very good reasons. So yeah, we don't want to do that. But One Green Man asks, what's the worst combo of traits you've seen? I can't remember the worst one. I do know that I got one guy who he was a state senator and also a Halo champion.
Oh yeah,
And his nickname from being a Halo champion was Arbiter. But Arbiter also sounded like a great name for a state senator.
Yep.
And so I was like, so this guy, he just felt like this weird combination, and he had this like kind of a goofy smile on his face and a big like tousled hair. And I'm like, wow, I want this guy as my state senator.
And I think, I mean, and to that point too, right? Like we try. When the system was designed in the way that Jeffrey has put it together, we try to give you characters who aren't just lemons. Like, we don't want to give you a character who's like, you get this guy and you're like, oh no, like he's taking up like food in my community and he just doesn't have any benefit whatsoever. And so we do try to have the generation, even if it's, you know, random, it is not completely random where we have a bag of 1,200 traits and we're just like, here's a fistful of them, you know. We try to find something that will give you an interesting and relatively balanced character with both pros and cons. So
Yeah, that's what we're kind of going for. Somebody asked what benefits stealth has in the game. We definitely, you know, at some point we definitely want to like leave room for you guys to discover this stuff. But stealth, the main benefit that it has is it makes it harder for zombies to see you. So conditions under which you might be right at the edge of a zombie's vision and a normal character might get seen, your character will not get seen. If you've got the stealth skill, and that's you know improves steadily over time. And there's other benefits as well. I believe that you know there's certain actions that some characters will make noise doing, and if you have the stealth specialization, you don't make noise doing those things. But yeah, it's something along those lines. So definitely very valuable for your character who, if you want to send somebody out scavenging and not get into trouble, you know, stealth is what you want. If you want to get into trouble, then gunslinging is probably a good choice.
Can you change your leader once a leader has been chosen?
So definitely, once a leader dies,
Yep.
you can always replace them.
if they pass away, that you can replace them.
And so that definitely gives you a lot of options there.
And you can promote a leader of the same type, or you can change if you want to kind of move your community in a different direction.
You're like, well, clearly that failed. He died.
Yeah.
You can go somewhere
like
else.
having another warlord seems like the wrong choice. We're getting our asses handed to us. Let's do, you know, let's try to build things instead. You know, so.
So people have asked about this portrait up here, whether you know players generate it themselves or if it's procedurally generated.
So I actually wrote the code for that specific thing. And so basically the idea here is that we just use the game engine to, you know, we put together the character and then we capture a snapshot of what that character looks like. And, you know, we have some... There's been changes to Inside Touch It. I think Matt actually is the person to ask about this because he's the one who's been tweaking the values for the lighting and setup and whatever. And you can imagine it like a normal, you know, like a photo booth or like a, you know, a backdrop where you're you know, somebody's taking your headshot. Similar thing to that, just done in the game engine where it captures the actual. So, you know, like you can. So you feel like it is the correct character. You know, it does look like that person, and it is hard work that like to make the characters identifiable, you know, like to make them actually look different in the headshots and stuff like that. So there's it's been a lot of good work by our artists.
And then we got a question. Can you have somebody who is just crazy, unstable, like a fanatic or a nutso person? There are definitely traits that make people more irritable and have them cause problems in the community. Like you'll periodically have events where it says, you know, so-and-so started a fight with so-and-so and everybody's mad now. And it'll have a hit on your morale and it'll be a problem. And there will be certain characters who tend to be instigators of that kind of thing. And you can see that in their traits.
Do you know the number of names we have in the game?
I used to know. It is definitely in the 4 digits.
Yeah.
But especially if you count all of the last names, first names, nicknames, and the nicknames that are derived from the first names and the last names,
Right.
and the nicknames derived from the traits. Like there's tons of names.
I think my favorite part of this name generation is the trait-based nicknames. I really love it when a character is just like, he's so like known for the thing he does that like he's got his Halo handle as his like nickname or you know whatever. I think that's great. Alfred Ben was asking whether or not Alfred can be a name in the game, and I can say with fair confidence that we probably included that in one of those.
It probably is
thousands
somewhere.
of list names, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I mean, I could definitely check, but that it seems like it's probably on the it's probably you'll see it on an older person, I'd imagine, because we got different name lists for because one of the things, this is like one of my pet peeves, watching Fear the Walking Dead. I think I've told this story before. Watching Fear the Walking Dead, they have a 50-year-old woman named Madison. And the name Madison was not considered a woman's name until the mid-'80s, and so that's impossible. And so like, and so all of our names are divided up by age. So you have names for young people, names for older people, and stuff like that. And we tried to do that across cultures whenever we could get access to that data.
Yeah.
And that was, but it was a lot of fun. I feel I learned so much about the naming traditions in different cultures. We tried whenever we could, to find people either at the studio or friends or professionals or people who could inform us on, on different naming traditions in different cultures so we could get it right. So we had, our list of Norwegian names. We had Jørgen.
You can, in fact, play as the one and only Jørgen.
Yeah, if you keep re-rolling again and again, eventually you could get Jørgen Tjernø.
The odds are small, but they're there.
It's kind of like the odds of hitting a particular proton with another proton from across the universe. But
Fubarks is asking also about how can two survivors have the same name, and they can have the same first name. But what we do, you see here, it says Allison at the top, and it says Allison Sequeira below it. And so Allison Sequeira is their character. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. My apologies.
That's close.
That's their full name, but Allison is their nickname, and oftentimes those will diverge. And what we strive for uniqueness is the nickname. So what you'll see them referred to as mostly in the game when other characters are talking to them or they're mentioned in a mission description or something like that, we will use the nickname, and so those are mostly guaranteed to be unique. There are some highly unlikely scenarios where it could happen, but yeah, like that's what we do the uniqueness on.
Like, for example, here we got Alexis Blackwell, who goes by Lex.
Right.
And so you can see, like, even though most of the characters, the easiest thing for most characters is to select their first name as their nickname, and that's what you see most of the time. But they could select something else. Some characters, like characters with military or police backgrounds, will often go by their last name. Characters will, in fact, you'll see that right near the beginning of the game, with no spoilers. But then, but like somebody like Lex could have a name that's derived from their first name. Or like you were saying, like Travis told me he ran into a community of that had a lot of like medical professionals in it, and one of them was a plastic surgeon who went by Facelift, and stuff like that. So all kinds of random names in there. Hi Cadet is reminding us that it's 2 p.m. and we need to get back to work, and we agree. Though this has been a lot of fun, and like we've been waiting for so long because seriously, Jørgen and I started working on this 2 years ago?
I've been here 2 years in May, so we're just about getting up on 2 years now.
So, oh my gosh. So it's been a long time that we've been excited about this system, eager to talk about it. And so, please, I'm sure we didn't get to a lot of your questions. Please, definitely, hit us up on Twitter. If I can really put this up here. Yeah, so hit us up on Twitter to ask us questions. And for now, we're going to say goodbye to Jørgen Tjernø. Thank you for coming and talking to us.
Yep, thank you for having me.
And and just, don't forget to keep watching IGN for additional coverage for the rest of this month. They're going to keep revealing new stuff about State of Decay 2. And we're really eager to keep talking to you guys about this stuff. So anytime they come in to talk about something, we're going to come in and stream with you about it.
And as usual, thanks to all of our wonderful fans for coming out and spending time with us today.
Yeah, thank you for all the great questions.
Yeah, we're so close, guys. The long wait is almost over.
Can't wait.
So close. All right, well, we'll see y'all later.
Awkward sign off.